independence in this realm of personal fulfillment. So I think that's what the Fountainhead's focused on. Roark recognizes Toohey's evil, but also recognizes that in a free country, that Toohey cannot stop him. And he's focused on his creativity. Also, I think Roark also realizes, what I said before, that when he does make this great success for himself that he knows he will, he's going to be an inspiration to plenty of other people, like the boy who always wanted to write music at that beautiful opening to Part 4. And that's Roark's answer to Toohey. You know, that Toohey knows it. That's why Toohey's desperate to stop him. That Roark will be an inspiration. Roark has a great success on his own terms, will be an enormous inspiration to the Mallorys, to the future Mallorys, who are just being born now. Roark's going to have a tremendous positive influence, inspiration on them. So Roark, that's Roark's answer to Toohey. And I think one last point on this. You're right. Toohey's both simultaneously both helpless and enormously dangerous. He's helpless to deal with reality, but that's what makes him dangerous. The way he seeks survival then is as a parasite, by gaining control over others, by being a power seeker, by bringing others in effect down to his level of misery and to ineffectual misery. Let's move ahead, otherwise we'll be here all day. All right. So next point that notice that so the theme here is independent functioning versus dependent functioning. Notice how Ayn Rand brilliantly shows us an endless series of variations on that theme. One variation on the theme of independence versus dependence is the issue of conformity and nonconformity, which is prominent in the story of the Fountainhead. Another is the role of the innovator in human life and his struggle against a conservative society. So let's take a look at these 2 points, and again, notice the characters and the plot elements that Ayn Rand uses to dramatize a seemingly endless variations on her theme. Conformity and nonconformity. Notice conventionally, those two are set forth as a dichotomy that a dichotomy that's not only mutually exclusive, but that is mutually exhaustive. Namely, in the conventional view, Ayn Rand, I think, tweaks this. She shows it needs to be rethought and recast. But conventionally, it's viewed that somebody's a conformist or a nonconformist, that they're different, mutually exclusive, and of course it covers the waterfront. There's no other type. Now let's take these one at a time, because Ayn Rand takes the conventional dichotomy between conformity and nonconformity, and she shows that if you are going to be exhaustive, if you are going to cover the waterfront, you need to see this as a trichotomy, a 3-part distinction between the conformist, the nonconformist, and the individualist. So let's take these one at a time. Let's take a look at the conformist, and of course Peter Keating is the best example. So let's let Ayn Rand tell this part of the story. Well, in fact, she's told the whole story. The scene is Kiki Holcomb's party. It's on page 261. Kiki Holcomb's party, where Roark, of course, has just become known as a designer of the Enright House. Poor Dominique has no idea who he is explicitly. At some visceral level, I think she knows who and what he is, which is why she was attracted to him, of all the workers she could have chosen in the granite quarry. But she meets him here for the first time, realizing that he's a brilliant architect, not just a granite quarry worker, that he's the designer of the Enright House. But that's an important scene in and of itself. But we're focused on Keating. Joel Sutton. Remember Joel Sutton? He's considering Roark to design a building for him. And Joel Sutton wonders if Roark plays badminton. And Roark says no. And Joel Sutton's like seriously disappointed. He wanted, they wanted to play badminton with Roark. And Roark says something to him like, well, if I played badminton, would you think that would make it a better building? And Sutton says, well, no. Oh, by the way, an important point here is that Sutton doesn't himself recognize Roark's merit as an architect. To Sutton, they're all pretty much the same. A Roark building, a Keating building. He doesn't really distinguish between them. There's one reason, and only one reason, that attracts Sutton to Roark, and that is Roger Enright has hired. Roger Enright has hired Roark, and if it's good enough for Enright, you know, it's good enough for me, whether I understand the principles of, involved or not. Now, while Roark is talking to Sutton, here's Peter Keating doing what he does best, namely eavesdropping. And when Sutton saunters off, Keating comes up to him, 261. When Joel Sutton left him, Roark heard a bright voice saying, "Congratulations, Howard," and turned to find Peter Keating smiling at him radiantly and derisively. "Hello, Peter. What did you say?" "I said congratulations on landing Joel Sutton. Only, you know, you didn't handle that very well." "What?" "Old Joel." "Oh, of course, I heard most of it. Why shouldn't I? It was very entertaining." "That's no way to go about it, Howard. You know what I would have done?" This is hysterical. They say Ayn Rand has no sense of humor. "You know what I would have done? I'd have sworn I played badminton since I was 2 years old, and how it's the game of kings and earls, and it takes a soul of rare distinction to appreciate it, and by the time he put me to the test, I'd have made it my business to play like an earl, too. What would it cost you?" Roark's response is immortal. "I didn't think of it." Yeah, he didn't think of it. It comes out of a different universe. I mean, it's completely alien. Keating could just as well have landed from Saturn as far as Roark's concerned. He didn't think of it. If he lived to be as old as Methuselah, Roark would never think of it. Keating continues, "It's a secret, Howard, a rare one. I'll give it to you free of charge with my compliments. Always be what people want you to be." There's a signature sentence here. You can underline that in your text. Toohey talks about the style of a soul. There it is, in one line. There's the style of Keating's soul. That's all you'll ever need to know about Keating. This is the way he conducts his life. He doesn't just say it. He does it. Always be what people want you to be. Then you've got them where you want them. I'm giving it free because you'll never make use of it. You'll never know how. You're brilliant in some respects, Howard. I've always said that. And terribly stupid in others, possibly. You ought to try and learn a few things if you're going in for playing the game through Kiki Holcomb's salon. Are you, growing up, Howard? You get the idea. Always be what people want you to be. There's the essence of a conformist soul. So let's articulate the meaning of that. Conformity is uncritical adherence to the judgment, the standards, the values of others. I repeat that. Conformity is uncritical or blind adherence or unthinking adherence to the judgment, the standards, the values of others. The conformist seeks approval. He desires social acceptance. And of course, the key point here is he is willing, in order to gain the social acceptance he craves, the way a drug addict craves a high, in order to gain that, he is willing to surrender or betray any thought, any principle, any value of his own, as long as he can get other people to like him. Now, in the story, of course, Peter Keating is a paradigm example. His life is a chameleon-like process of adjusting himself to the beliefs, values, hopes, aspirations of others in order to gain their approval and make sure that and avoid their rejection. Now, when he says always be what people want you to be, of course, what he means is you'll be popular then. The people will like you. You'll never have to stand alone in isolation from the group. Now, you notice that Peter Keating is not the villain in the story, although he does some horrible things. He practically murders poor Lucius Hire. He betrays Roark repeatedly. There's really only two people in the universe of the Fountainhead that Peter Keating loves. One is Catherine Halsey, the other is Howard Roark, and he betrays both of them. So he is a dirtbag, there isn't any question about it. But at the end of the day, I think the rational reader doesn't hate Keating. You might hate Toohey, but you feel sorry for Keating. He's pathetic. He just wants other people to like him. He just wants to be loved. And he doesn't have the backbone to withstand the inevitable rejection that somebody who's independent will receive from some people in the world. There's a telling scene regarding Keating when Dominique says to Toohey, "Peter Keating is mud clinging to your galoshes." And Toohey responds, "That's in your style, Dominique. I prefer to think of Peter Keating as a soul wagging its tail." I mean, if you understand that, it's not funny. It's heartbreaking, even though I'm laughing. Because obviously he's comparing Keating to a dog. You know, my dog, I think I might, I see a yellow lab, Mickey. He's a great dog. He said, "Mickey, come here." She'll run up to me. "Mickey, roll over." You rub her belly there. "Mickey, come on." She's a people puppy. It's a very endearing quality in a dog to want to be, loved and accepted by your master. But in a human being, it's heartbreaking. It's pathetic. He simply doesn't have. I think what Ayn Rand's showing us here, and Keating's a cautionary tale. It's understandable to want to be liked. To be rejected by others is painful. To stand alone against society is no fun. People have done it. Ayn Rand herself did it. I imagine it's much more fulfilling to have people recognize you for who you are and accept you and like you for that, rather than reject you, have to fight against them. It makes life more painful than it has to be. But at what price do you seek approval? How important are other people and the approval of other people in your life? The Roark, of course, in fiction, and the Ayn Rands in real life are willing to risk social rejection in order to stand up for what they know is right, what they know is true, what they know is important. Keating needs to grow a backbone, and I don't know how you do that. He needs a backbone transplant. And I don't think genetics has a spiritual backbone transplant to make him from a worm or a chameleon into a man. And I don't know that genetic science could ever do that. It's something that has to be done intellectually or spiritually. So in seeking the approval of others, Keating is... it's anybody who's ever been an outcast, you've seen it like in middle school and high school. If you've been rejected by the cool kids in school, you've been rejected, you had to stand alone. It's painful. There's nothing that's positive about that. So it's understandable at an emotional level why Keating wants to be liked. But at the cost of your soul, at the cost of your mind, at the cost of your values, not a good trade. Not a good trade at all. Roark wouldn't even consider doing it. He's not going to betray what he knows is right just in order to gain approval from society. So Keating's a perfect example of the conformist. In real life, politicians are often examples. They will go by the public opinion polls rather than stand for principles. If the public opinion polls show them X, they'll go along with it. A story I heard, I'm not sure if it was true, but it serves to illustrate the principle, concerns Big Bush, not Little Bush, and I'm not talking about shrub, but Big Bush. Back in the late 70s, 1980, when he supported the woman's right to abortion, and this isn't about the abortion issue, although I support the right to abortion. This is about using one's own judgment. The story I heard was that when Reagan was considering, in 1980, Reagan was considering Bush as his vice presidential candidate. Big Bush was interested. In fact, he asked, "What do I got to do?" And Reagan, the candidate of the religious right, Reagan said, "Well, all you got to do is flip-flop on the abortion issue. Go from being supporting the woman's right to abortion to opposing it." And according to the story, Big Bush said, "I can do that." And so he simply flip-flopped on the issue in order to kiss up to the religious right and thereby gain the Republican nomination. Now, if that's true, let me put it hypothetically, if that's true, that's conformity. As opposed to if Bush rethought the issue in his own mind, looked at the facts,